What's up, guys? This is my UFC 214 prediction video. We're going to start with Renato Moicano versus Brian Ortega. This is an important fight for the featherweight division, especially in the prospect category. A lot of people have been really high on Brian Ortega, and this is a really good fight because both of these guys are grapplers. Both of them prefer it on the ground, even though I think Brian Ortega has a better striking game. Renato's pretty good on the ground himself. He has slick submissions. All of his finishes are by submission. He's balanced and he's good everywhere on the ground. He's really good at transitioning. He's really good at controlling his opponents. Brian Ortega, I give the advantage on the feet. He's a bit wild at times, but he has the knockout power. And he's very unorthodox. And he's a pretty big guy for the division. Ortega is also amazing on the ground himself. Trains with Renan. His submission game is amazing. Very dangerous on the ground at all positions. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Brian Ortega, and I'm going to go by a second round submission. And I think Ortega is going to be able to hurt Renato on the feet, give him a lot of problems on the feet. And Renato's going to try to take him down, and Ortega's eventually going to get the submission. Then we go to Aljamain Sterling versus Renan Barao. This is an amazing fight. Barao is back in the bantamweight division. Sterling is a wrestler with submission ability. He throws a lot of kicks on the feet, although he's been working on his boxing. He throws his kicks very long to the head, to the body, to the legs. He varies a lot in the kicks, and his submission game is amazing. Even on his back, he's able to get things like arm triangles on his back. On top, though, is where he prefers to be on the ground. His ground and pound is great, and his submission ability is there. But he's fighting Renan Barao, who is going to have a clear advantage on the feet. He's going to be the bigger man, very quick, very ferocious, takes a lot of risk on the feet, which can really help him in this fight. And his takedown defense is amazing. He's hardly ever been taken down in his whole career. I think he had 1 or 2 takedowns done on him throughout all of his fights, which is crazy. And his submission game is there as well. He's very dangerous on the ground. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Renan Barao, and I'm going to go by a decision, although I do see a pretty good performance by him. Then we go to the feature fight in the prelims. Ricardo Lamas versus Jason Knight. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am for this fight. Ricardo Lamas is a wrestler with good submission ability and ferocious ground and pound, especially with his elbows. His stand-up is pretty good as well. He's well-rounded on the feet. He throws all kind of techniques, all kind of offensive techniques. His defense is more of movement and moving around and keeping his hands up. Very basic defense, but his offense is pretty dangerous. He has a very quick jab and entry shots for the takedown. And he's fighting Jason Knight, who is a Muay Thai style fighter, doesn't use too much footwork. He also has extremely underrated and dangerous ground abilities. His submissions off his back, his ability to transition and reverse his opponents as they get him down. His ground and pound is ferocious as well, and he's a tall guy for the division. He's a bit like Donald Cerrone. His style of fighting and his abilities on the feet and on the ground resembles a lot of Donald Cerrone. And he's an extremely tough fighter. Really good chin, and he has heart too. He likes to get in wars. It's a hard fight to pick. And you know what? I'm going to go with Lamas. I really do want to pick Knight for some reason, but I'll go with Lamas, and I will go by a third round submission. But I do see Jason Knight giving a really good fight. And that's just the prelims. Now we get into the main card. This is how stacked this card is. I'm so glad that no one got injured, and the fights are all there except Megan Anderson, but still. Then we go to Jimmy Manuwa versus Volkan Oezdemir. Very important fight for the light heavyweight division. They're both strikers, so I do see this being more of a striking match. I don't think either of them could take the other down, even if they wanted to. Manuwa is more of an explosive, plotting fighter. He tries to intercept his opponents with the left hook or the right hook. He tries to pressure fighters against the cage and then force them to move laterally, which is where he does his best work. His kicks are very explosive. And then Volkan Oezdemir is also a pressuring fighter. He doesn't have the kind of explosiveness that Manuwa has, but he's very unorthodox. His aggression also messes up the timing of his opponent. He's really good at blitzing his opponents, landing high kicks. His last fight with Misha Cirkunov was just mind-boggling. Maybe he does have this deceptive knockout power that we don't know of yet. This might be the hardest fight to pick of the night, but I will have to go with Jimmy Manuwa. I'm going to go with Jimmy Manuwa. I'm going to go by a second round knockout or a decision. I think he's going to be able to time Volkan as Volkan tries to blitz him, or he's going to try to strike with Volkan and catch him first, knowing that he's the faster fighter and the more powerful fighter. Volkan could win this fight, and I would not be surprised at all. And then we go to Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone. Finally, this fight's going on. I mean, I would have loved to have seen it back when they were first scheduled to fight, because Donald Cerrone was on that win streak and Lawler was coming back from his knockout loss. Either way, it's going to be an amazing fight. Both strikers, both just want to stand toe-to-toe and just throw at each other. Although that sounds like they're not technical, these two are very technical strikers. And Donald Cerrone does have some takedown offense, but I do not see any of that working against Lawler, because Lawler has some of the best takedown defense I've ever seen. Lawler is more of a boxer with some great footwork, uses a lot of stutter steps to get the timing off his opponent and then catch him with the jab or the right hook to a left straight. His left straight is very precise and very powerful. And he has some good head kicks as well, left head kicks. And he is a southpaw, which is going to open up his left hand on Cerrone. And Cerrone doesn't like to move a lot, so he's going to have to be very wary of that left hand, because Cerrone doesn't like to use footwork. He's more of a plodding Muay Thai fighter, throws amazing kicks, laser jab. His boxing technique is getting much better, especially offensively. But his boxing defense is still not there. We've seen it a while ago with the Nate Diaz fight, and then we've seen it again with Jorge Masvidal. And that's a long stretch between those two fights, and he still hasn't developed it that much. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Robbie Lawler. If Robbie Lawler comes in there 100% mentally, if that knockout loss to Woodley did not affect him that much, I do see him winning this fight, and I do see him winning by knockout first or second round. But if he was shook by that knockout, if that knockout loss to Woodley actually affected him, and he becomes a little bit shy on the feet, I do see Cerrone winning the fight. But I'm going to go with Lawler in this one. I don't see him losing himself out there, and I do see him getting the win and getting on track for the title shot again. And then we go to Cris Cyborg versus Tonya Avenger. This actually seems like a mismatch to me. I know Tonya Avenger is very tough. She can present some grappling troubles for Cris Cyborg, and she's a big fighter for the 135-pound division. But I don't see this being a good fight for her. Cris Cyborg is probably the greatest woman fighter of all time. She has knockout power that no other female has. Maybe Amanda Nunes has similar power, but Cyborg has undoubtedly the most power in the UFC out of all females. Her takedown defense is very good as well. Her takedown offense is very underrated. Her takedown ability is going to be very hard to stop for anybody. Her striking technique is also pretty good. Her striking defense is also very good. People think that she's some brute that just knocks people up by sheer power, but she is actually very well rounded. So people think as long as I don't get clipped by overhands and right hooks and left hooks, I'm good. That's not the case at all. If that's the other fighter's game plan, they're going to lose the fight. And Tonya Avenger, she's a grappler, a wrestler predominantly, and tries to get the ground and pound on opponents. Her striking is not really there. She's pretty lanky on the feet and gumpy on the feet a little bit. She uses her reach, and she uses those punches to get the takedown and finish with ground and pound or by a submission. And she overwhelms her opponents with that grappling. But I do not see that working at all for Cris Cyborg. In this fight, I have kind of two predictions. Either I see Cris Cyborg knocking her out inside of 30 seconds, or I see a prolonged beating and then Cyborg finally finishing her late in the round. I do see Avenger trying to go for those punches and going for the takedown, only to get stuffed multiple times. And then as Cyborg pushes her off, shrugs her off, I see Cyborg landing shots. And then this is going to keep continuing on until Tonya Avenger actually decides to throw punches at Cris Cyborg. And I do see Cyborg countering her until the knockout. For the 30-second knockout, if Tonya Avenger goes and decides to throw strikes with Cris Cyborg, I do see Cris Cyborg knocking her out very quickly. I do see her countering her and then just finishing her off. I have a feeling that Cris Cyborg is going to connect with a counter right hook or a counter left hook. And then we go to the co-main event. Tyron Woodley versus Demian Maia. Man, this is an interesting fight. You have Tyron Woodley, who's a very powerful wrestler, has amazing striking defense, has extreme power, probably the most powerful fighter in the division, and it's that right hand. That right hand is accurate and it's deadly. I mean, if he was able to drop Wonder Boy 3 times or 4 times in a matter of 2 fights with that right hand, just countering him, it's going to be tough for anyone to get away from it, especially Demian Maia. And Tyron Woodley likes to set up that right hand by throwing feints at his opponent and then coming over the top on an opening when he sees it. But he doesn't move too much, and the only time he does move is when he explodes on you like a rocket. Out of nowhere, he's sitting there in front of you, and then once he sees this opening on you, he just explodes on you so quickly, and it catches a lot of people unexpectedly. Demian Maia is a BJJ fighter, a specialist. His striking is okay, but he's a very tall fighter and a big fighter for this division. Keeps a very long stance, and the reason why he keeps that stance so he can shoot in on his opponent and create an illusion that he's farther than he actually is. He likes to pump out his jab out there, throw a couple feints, and then shoot in for the takedown. And if he cannot take you down, he'll just pull guard and try to get you into half guard on top of him, which is crazy. Nobody really wants to do that, but Demian Maia, it works for him. I mean, he might be the best BJJ fighter in the UFC. So he can do these things that no other fighter wants to do. But once he gets his opponent to the ground, either on top of him or he's on top of you, it's all danger. He's able to sweep his opponents so easily. His ability to take his opponents back, it's remarkable. I've never seen anyone be able to do it like he does it in the UFC ever. And once he gets that rear naked choke on you, it's a done deal. The problem with this fight for Demian Maia is the stylistic matchup. Stylistically, this is the worst matchup for him because not only Tyron Woodley have amazing takedown defense, and no one is really able to take this guy down due to his wrestling background and his explosiveness and his height. He's a very short fighter, so his center of gravity is going to be a lot lower, so Maia's going to have to shoot in really low or tie up with him, which could also be dangerous because I do believe Woodley is going to be stronger than Maia. I see Maia's best way of getting Woodley to the ground is to pull guard on him, tie up with him and then pull guard, but that could be very dangerous as well because fighters who have fought Woodley have said that once he's on top of you, it's just something different. He's so powerful, so strong, and he feels so big. They can't shake him off. Woodley's base is very strong. It's very hard to break his posture. And if Maia cannot get Woodley to the ground, this is going to be a very bad fight for him because I do see that right hand landing, and all it needs is to land one time. So my prediction for the fight is Tyron Woodley. I'm going to go by a second or third round knockout. And then we go to the main event. Daniel Cormier versus Jon Jones 2. The rematch. This is a very interesting fight because one, you have Daniel Cormier who's been more active, been fighting as a champion with a belt at least, and he's beaten some really good fighters. And then Jon Jones being suspended for such a long time after a not so great performance against OSP. Now Cormier is a wrestler, one of the best wrestlers credential wise. He has very good dirty boxing, very short for the division, which is why his dirty boxing works so great. He throws a lot of volume punches on the infighting. His overhands are good, but he really likes to pressure his opponents, put him against the cage, and try to take him down. And if that doesn't work, he just tries to box with his opponent and just walk him down. He doesn't like to go backwards at all, such as if you looked at the Gustafsson fight. And Jon Jones is one of the most well-rounded fighters ever. He throws everything, and he makes up his own techniques. He could take you down easily. He took down Cormier already, pretty easily too. His jiu-jitsu is good enough to beat black belts, even though after he hurts him on the feet, but still, for him being a white belt, I think he's a blue belt now. Those spinning techniques, spinning elbows, side kicks to the body, Superman punches, he throws everything. And the big advantage Jon Jones has over everybody, other than just sheer talent and creativity, he has an 84-inch reach. That's a 7-foot reach. He's 6'4". He has a 7-foot reach. He has a whole foot of reach advantage over Cormier. That is crazy. And that's not the only thing. He's one of the best at using that reach too. I mean, you look at like Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve has the same reach as Jon Jones, but he doesn't use it anywhere near as good as Jon Jones does. He uses that jab. He uses that long leg reach as well. He uses the long left hook masked behind the jab. He likes to post his arm in front of his opponent to keep that distance and not let him come in on him. But here's the thing, and this is a real issue. Jon Jones does like to keep his hand forward, and he does like to keep his fingers extended, and he pokes a lot of people. That doesn't happen with many other fighters, but for him, it's an issue. And they're going to have the new rules implemented. So one poke from Jon Jones can get him a point deducted in this fight. And that is a lot to cost. And if he gets a point deducted, that's going to play with his head a little bit. Because it's a habit of his. He just does it because he has this monstrous reach. And I believe in the first fight, he did poke Cormier in the eye. If the fight's close, kind of, and say Jon Jones is about to win 3 rounds, and he pokes Cormier in the eye, it's going to be an even round, most likely. And if Cormier's able to win 2 rounds, it can go to a draw. That's how much this eye poke problem from Jones can cost him. But other than that, my prediction for the fight, it's kind of tough to say because we don't really know where Jones is at, but I'm going to go with Jon Jones. I'm going to go with Jones. I'm going to go by a decision. I don't see him finishing Cormier, but I do see this being a much closer fight. For some reason, I do see Cormier landing a big shot on Jones, but I do see Jones winning more of the rounds and getting a close decision. But I will not be surprised at all if Cormier does pull this off. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. Also, comment below what your predictions are and why. Curious to see what you guys think as well. This is a stacked card. I predicted more fights than I usually do. I mean, the prelims are stacked. The main card is stacked. It's just an amazing card from top to bottom. Amazing card. Everybody should watch. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.